Hey, Brooke, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. My name's Brooke McCulley. I am a sales leader for Snowflake these days. I've been in my role about 2 years, but been in sales for the tech space since 2007. So about 13, 14 years now.
And what got you into sales?
My dad was in sales,
Okay,
so
natural.
he nothing to do with technology though. He actually sold band uniforms and then educational uh, stuff for schools. And so I saw my dad doing it and really loved what he did and that he got to travel and spend time with people. And I thought, well, heck, that looks fun. And, those are all things that I like to do. Why not give it a go? So straight out of school, I just kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah. And did you like it immediately?
I did. I've always really enjoyed being in a team atmosphere, and sales is very much a team sport. And so that was a good fit for me. And I love, working with people to solve complex challenges and being part of the solution. And so those two things combined really, really made sales a great fit for me in my career.
And you've liked big companies versus small, or?
That's a great question because my career's definitely evolved more towards being a part of smaller organizations on a rapid growth trajectory to build or to big. So, I think I really enjoy having processes in place. So when I've tried to go back into a really small organization before, that's not a very good fit for me. I need just a bit of structure in my life. My starting careers were with two of the largest companies, both with 3M and EMC. And so, I got a lot of great structure, a lot of great training from those organizations, and then have been able to apply it down to smaller organizations when I joined like ServiceNow and Snowflake.
Yeah. And when you say team, what does that mean for you? Are you a leader now of people or a leader of accounts or both? Or
Yeah, so now I'm a leader of people. So I'm a regional director of sales. I lead a team of 7 sellers. Um, and for me, selling, like I said earlier, has always been a team sport. And a leader early on in my career said to me, "Hey, Brooke, the best sellers are resource hogs." And what I really think he meant is you surround yourself with really good people. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what I mean by team is, you find success in building a group of individuals with a common goal, that their skills complement and uplift each other. That's how I build my team here at Snowflake. And that's what I found to be the most successful.
and what was your motivation to get into leadership versus staying an individual contributor?
I felt like that I really had an opportunity, to provide the lessons that I learned to give back to the sales organization, and that I always drifted in that direction where I was always trying to compile, like I said, teams or groups of people to get a task accomplished. And I found the most satisfaction in really seeing the team win. And so as my career progressed and I found success in sales, which was really great and personally rewarding, I really enjoyed it most where, we had a team of people that we could reflect back on what we like to do. And I thought, hey, if this is where my passion lies, why don't we go and build some really great teams in other places?
And what was the transition of that like? Because that's completely different.
Oh my gosh. I think that is probably the most understated thing. And, people warned me. They're like, hey, what makes a great seller is not necessarily what makes a great leader. It's been 2 years. It's been the most difficult transition, but also the most rewarding transition in my career. When you go from being, the star player on a team to really being the coach. I think it's humbling, number one, where you see all the complexities and all the different personalities that you have to compile to make a team successful. How do you motivate different individuals? Because not everybody ticks the same way, right? And they certainly don't tick the same way you do sometimes, right? So you've got to figure out how do you morph yourself into a motivator for them. So it's been a learning experience that I've had to reach out to my mentor network for and really tap on previous leaders that have had an impact on my life. And thank goodness I've got a ton of great people that have really surrounded themselves around me and my team to help us move into it, to make that transition successful.
Because typically there's two major challenges in that. There's the relinquishing control part of the deals and the day-to-day execution. And then there's the how do you manage internally so that you don't become a sales admin versus a sales leader.
Right, right. So I think, on the first one, it's the how do you stop from being a super rep, right? And knowing how, hey, right, yeah, you don't want to overstep your bounds, but you certainly want to provide coaching where there's opportunity, right? I've had some people recommend some great books along the way that I've read specific to coaching, and all those things are helpful. But the thing I've found the most useful in guiding me there is really soliciting feedback. Feedback's so important from the team. Are they getting the coaching that they need? Do they feel like we're they're being micromanaged? I really try to solicit candid feedback from the team to kind of gauge along that transition how I was doing in that regard. But there's so many great ways that people sell that are outside of your own, and once you start to see that, right, you all can learn. So I think that transition, out of the super rep mentality is something that I was warned about, but you don't really realize it until you're in it.
And were you able to build your team from scratch, or did you inherit people?
Yeah, so this was an interesting opportunity. My last role at ServiceNow, I had a team of individuals that dotted line. Nobody really reported to me, but I was able to assemble a group of individuals to accomplish what we were trying to do for one of the largest customers there. And I think that was great training ground for where I was going. And when I transitioned here, this was absolutely an opportunity to build a team from pretty much scratch, just because this region of the company, I'm in the Midwest, was one of the last regions to really segment and build out. I'm in the flyover states, the heartland, as I like to call it.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So I've got, I had 2 or 3 individuals. We went through a segmentation in my first 6 months to separate the sales organization from enterprise and major. So I lost some reps that I had transitioned in the first 6 months, and because we just simply split the team in half. And then since then I've hired 4, and I'm actually interviewing. The balance of my day today is interviewing a 7th rep to add to my team.
And what do you look for in a rep?
I think one, it's attitude and effort, right? I say all the time that I'm always looking for a sales athlete first, right? Somebody that can run a qualified sales campaign, that talks to me about how they have a good sales structure about their day, how they run. I'm partial to medic. So I'm always looking for those things. Do you know how to build a champion? Do you know how to identify the economic buyer? Do you know how to qualify a clean sales process? And then it's hustle. And that's what I mean by effort, right? I'm looking for a hustler that's out there, that's not here to just go out and farm the land. Even if you just have one account, it's all about hustle and doing the right things for the right customer and waking up every day with a priority in mind. And then somebody who's just a good cultural fit for the company. I say when I interview people, it's just as important that you feel at home with us as we do with you on our team, because we want everybody to be, a good member of this family, right, when they come in. So attitude, effort, and a good cultural fit seems to be a winning combination for me.
And because I like that, because I was thinking, like, there's the knowledge of what a champion is, how to find an economic buyer, what the process is. But then there's the execution of it, because you can teach that in one day, but the execution takes a lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's an iterative process, right? And it's somebody who's willing, as I mentioned earlier, feedback's so important. It's somebody who's willing to take feedback like that, iterate on their process, learn from the mistakes along the way. So it has to be somebody who's open to lifelong learning to perfect their process, and really take pride in what we do. Sales is an art. Sales is a serious profession. You can't just roll out of bed and be a great seller. And so I'm looking for that person who's really, really willing to invest in themselves and perfect the art.
And how do you tell that in an interview?
I think that a lot of times I'm asking things like, when's the last time you learned something that was outside of your comfort zone, right? It doesn't always have to be, wouldn't tell me about the last deal that you closed, right? It can be things that they invest in themselves outside of work, or if they've taken on a new challenge at work, being a part of an up and coming organization. I know recently we've spun up into Diversity Inclusion Council, right? And are you taking parts in things like that so that you can better yourself at work? And tell me about how you participate in a team like that. Those are all ways in which people can better themselves. When I'm looking for in an interview about how are they effectively building champions, how have they iterated on that process, it's, tell me 3 successful campaigns that you've run in your career that are different, right, at different points in your career, but also tell me, 3 equal times where you failed and what were the lessons that you took away from that. And really looking for those people that have an innate self-awareness, right, where they were able to identify something they could have done better, and then how did you iterate on that and change it the next time around. And usually those 2 stories should tie together, right? Failure to success along the way to make sure that they're developing.
And how about as far as like their deep understanding of how a complex sale like yours works? Because the default is probably to do nothing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think being able to challenge the status quo, right? And going in and being able to truly qualify along the way, their process, having them walk me through the last complex deal that they did, and introducing some challenger questions along the way to maybe see how they spin me into a champion by the end of the interview or whatnot, is critically important. So.
Care to share any of those questions?
I mean, I think if you,
I won't post this until your team's fully populated.
no, there you go, right? You're giving away my trade secrets. No, but I think, a question along the lines of, oftentimes I try to sell them out of the opportunity, right? Maybe this isn't a good fit for you today. Maybe you're not ready for this transition. Yeah. And not to induce stress but it does make them think about, well, how do I take what she said and what she's looking for and apply my strengths to it? Because a lot of times, as we prepare for interviews, and even this one, I've jotted down a handful of things that I wanted to make sure I brought up. And I want to get them outside of either their canned or practiced response to see, how do you really respond under pressure to something like that and apply your strengths to what I'm looking for, right? Needs-based selling.
Yeah. And how about style? Is there a particular style you are more comfortable with? There's like the relationship people, there's the technical people, there's the power top down, the technical up, bottom up.
I mean, yeah, I think that the unicorn is always the person, I don't know, I think relationship selling's great, right? And certainly a team, I think a well-rounded team has people that have strengths in each one of those so that they can help each other out. But the person that's comfortable in a C-level, right, conversations, right, and having those more executive conversations tends to be more effective when you've got a transformational product on your hand, where you need visionary leadership to get something done, where you're challenging the status quo. So I think it depends on where your product lands in the infrastructure space, or does it land in more of a change management space, right? As to what you're looking for in that particular rep and how they can best challenge the buyer.
And how did you do with that transition from like a ServiceNow type product to a Snowflake type product? Because it's pretty different, isn't it?
They're all different, right? I think if, I've told, when people ask me, how did you end up at Snowflake? I'm very much a believer in people and culture. Product, I kind of put, well, it's extremely important. And I feel like I've gotten lucky along the way to really have some of the world's best products in my bag to sell. But if you dissect my career, it's definitely, I've followed people to each organization along the way.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's led me to sell some of those, some really great products that have nothing to do with each other. which is, back to the evidence of a lifelong learner. I don't mind having to get to know a different product or a transformational product. You just have to invest in yourself to do it and to become the expert of that, right? But, my dad said once you can sell something, you can sell anything, right? Then you just apply the method of sales to the product.
As long as you realize it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think,
Yeah,
it's different, and there's going to be different buyers, right? And different needs based on those buyers, and your ability to effectively articulate that at the end of the day is what's going to set you apart from, any Joe Blow that walks in to sell the next competitor to you, right? Is being able to technically differentiate against the business values that are important to that buyer.
Yeah. And how about as far as like hunter farmer spectrum, like the person who has to have inbound and they do great. You give them
Yeah.
the start of a deal. It's not much there. You get a demo. They're curious about it. They're not even interested yet. They're just curious, but that person can turn that into an enterprise deal versus the hunter who you can give them the flyover states and 9 months later he's crushing it or she's crushing it.
Yeah, I think this has been so interesting for my career is in Snowflake, especially coming from my transition where I managed, a Fortune 1 retailer coming out of ServiceNow, and I had a sole one account, right? Was my responsibility coming to managing 5 states with a very small install base 2 years ago to, have to rapidly grow that up. So exactly, I went from a bit of a farmer in a large account to managing a team of hunters. And it is different. And I think you've got to find the motivation for the rep that likes to build something, right? Versus someone that likes to drift more towards that customer success mentality, right? The hunter likes to go out and likes to build things from scratch and likes to institute and leave their mark on the process and things that they're selling. And that takes, you're looking for a different person than someone that likes to go out and farm. And that's, nothing against farming. It's a challenge, right? Now you're focused on, hey, I've sold you something. It's usually a large contract. And now we're all about making sure that what I've sold is aligning to the goals that we talked about originally and seeing those things come to fruition.
How about like just intellectual horsepower? Because your customers have a lot of ways of solving the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's emotional intelligence, right? That I think when you think about intellectual horsepower with the rep, their ability to go in and ask intelligent questions, maybe.
Well, let's say they're looking at you and the beauty contest. They're in market and they go to whatever site and they get everybody in the top right-hand corner of the quadrant comes in. And the technical people are good at explaining it and how it works and how it's different. But that salesperson has to find something that customer cares about that no one else does. And just.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you're looking for 2 things, really. One, how does it change them personally, right? A personal win for the person that you're in the room with, right? Because you need various buyers along the way. So I'm always coaching my team to say, how does it personally affect them, right? And then accomplishing the goal of the task that they have at hand. Why were they assigned to solve this problem? And if they do, what does that mean for them, right? And as you work your way up the stack, uncovering those personal wins for each of those buyers and attaching, whatever you're selling and its value proposition to accomplish those goals helps you have a personal relationship with that person and help them gain that personal win. And then I think, it's the old adage of come in prepared, right? Know what the company is trying to do the research, do the hard work. That's why we pay you a base salary before you get commission, right? Is do the work, read the 10Ks and the quarterly earning reports and know what the company is trying to accomplish and be really succinct about how your product or service can help them accomplish those goals as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And what are the red flags that you've seen when you interview people? that
I think uh, a lack of preparedness. It's shocking to me. Early on when I started interviewing, the people that would walk in with no resume still, right? No pen and paper. And it's like, what just happened? How did you come?
tell me
But
about Snowflake. What do you guys do?
yeah, and it's like, well, just Google us. You can find us in, anywhere. And so I would say number one, it's just you should treat an interview as your number one sales call of your life.
Yes.
You're about to make a choice that could change the trajectory of your career and your life, and you need to prepare for it that way. So Google the company, know what our goals and objectives are. How can your specific skill set, you're just preparing for another sales call. So I look at it that way. If they show up unprepared, I'm like, hey, if you would do this for the biggest sales call of your life, how would you treat the customers in your region? And I think, other things is, especially in a sales motion, I expect you to know your numbers, right? Be able to rattle off your wins. Where have you finished year to date for the last 3 years? If you say you were a top rep, where were you in the stack rank? If I called a customer, what would they say about you? Have some of your favorite customers that love and adore you prepared to say something about you, right? Even if you just bring the little blurb in, it just, again, shows a level of preparedness that you would bring to the business for us.
And typically, companies make the mistake of hiring the adjacent gorilla reps.
Yeah.
And that can work, but it can also fail because just because they're at the company doesn't mean they caused that success. They could have just been the bat boy on the Yankees. Doesn't mean that bat boy is any different than the bat boy on the Pirates. Right?
Yeah.
How do you tell that?
I think it's, gosh, this is a great question. It was actually brought up to me by someone that I interviewed as they get, again, they weren't selected to move forward, but I solicited feedback after it. And they said, this probably wasn't a good fit in this opportunity, but next time, maybe you should challenge yourself to look outside of the box of the traditional player, right? And I had to sit there and scratch my head a bit and say, hey, are we looking for people that maybe didn't run in the same circle that we've ran in, right? Are we looking for people that bring new perspectives, especially as we transition in technology sales, to these from SaaS to utility models? You can take, different people and plug them in different places, and they all bring different strengths. To break that mold, I think it's, finding people, again, that are doing things a little bit outside the norm, either in their personal life, which, you can ask them questions about what they're doing outside of work all the time, right? And are they doing some things that are outside of the status quo? When was the last time at work where they broke a process in a good way? They weren't just bucking the system to make noise, but in a good way. Where did you challenge the status quo in your last organization? And tell me about how that happened, and how did you, handle bringing on champions along the way within your own organization to allow you to break that mold, and tell me the successes that unfolded from it. And then how did you go back and send the elevator back down and bring people along with you? Because those are people that are willing to change in a good way, right? And bring that change about in an effective manner inside an organization.
And how about as far as hiring to the territory versus hiring for skill and ability?
Oh, geez, that's a delicate balance, right? Especially in my market,
Your
right?
market, especially, yeah.
But being in the flyover states, a lot of customers say, hey, I don't want somebody from the big city to come into Arkansas or Oklahoma and tell us how to do things. We're our own unique market, and we're certainly very skilled, right? And so I think that there's plenty of great talent out here, right? And I'm very proud of the sales organizations that have been built across the Midwest. And I think you've got to find people that certainly have the cultural fit for the customers while bringing in the skill set that you need. And I think that, being able to know your market as a leader, your customer base, some of the values that are important to them, and being able to flush that out. Is it, a place that just needs someone who is from the community, shops at the same grocery store, goes to the same church, plays on the same football league. Okay, great. We probably need a local leader. And can I find somebody who's just on that cusp that I can develop and teach, right? The technology that we're looking for, they have the athleticism to get there, right? Versus if it's a market that's just fast moving, right? Maybe more established farming territory where you could put somebody in that knows the product, and then you're coaching them, maybe with some great customer mentors, how to have a better cultural fit in that organization. I think both are teachable in a way.
And what do you see? I think
sorry,
they are, but right. Everything's teachable, but there's time, right?
Time, and which comes from your ability to assess their aptitude.
Yeah.
And you as a leader feeling the responsibility of surrounding them with the right teachers. That's on us too, right? It can't, while I would love to be able to teach the team everything, it's on me to surround myself with other leaders as well that bring in a different aspect that can teach my individual reps, and I assign them different mentors for different reasons, right? So it's surrounding them with the right teachers.
And I like what you said about kind of following people that you either worked for or with in the past. It's kind of what I used to call the mafia strategy, where there's a crew,
true.
Right? And it works, and it's insanely effective because it takes away the build time, it takes away the trust time. It's already established.
Yeah, trust is a big one. I'm glad you said that because I underlined it like 3 times in my prep notes here. It was just, yeah, the mafia mentality is great. It's certainly, you don't have to take the time building trust. You all know you're an effective, well-oiled machine when you work together. And it's, you have to make sure that you're building the next level of the mafia behind you, right?
Your crew, yeah.
Well, because they phase out, right? And it's in the like they graduate on to the next thing, and so you've got to backfill the team as people go on. But there's an awesome responsibility in that, where you're looking for people that have like skills, but that they're also bringing a different aspect. Everyone's always bringing, a skill that might be missing, and we trust each other to look for those things.
And what do you look for above you as far as who leads you and who you work with? What motivates you, and what do you like?
I think number one is a strong system of ethics, right? I have been so fortunate in my career that the North Star has always been the customer, right? And from my leadership, right? And so do the right thing for the customer always. And when you enter a sales organization that puts the customer first, above revenue, above all those things are all side effects of doing the right thing for the customer. And when you have executive leadership that preaches that day in and day out, you're at a good place. I also look for leadership as, like I said, I take the sales profession very seriously. And so I love being a part of a company and a culture where sales is the tip of the spear, right? Where they recognize that, hey, we have an awesome army of sellers out there, and we're going to arm them with an enormous backing of resources that are world-class, that the mentality is everybody in the boat always, right? And if you stick your hand up for help, there's a million people rushing towards you, ready to get in the boat and paddle just as fast as you can. And I think that those two things are so very important. A sales organization that puts the customer first, and a company that puts sales, first and foremost, and then they rally around everyone with the common goal.
Yeah, cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you? And if you have any openings, feel free to pitch them.
Yeah, no, I do have an opening in St. Louis. So if there's anybody out there that's awesome and wants to be a part of an amazing culture and a fast growing company, Snowflake is it. So please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Brooke McCauley at Snowflake, based in Arkansas. So happy to help in any way that I can, whether you become a Snowflake or you're just a fellow seller out there to do what's right for the customer.